Aloha and welcome to this practice WOD called Responsive Kamanu. This is quite a long practice WOD, but I think it's totally worth every second that you spend on it, because I feel like the skills you acquire in this practice WOD and the next one on Responsive Castle High are going to really enhance your web design skills by enabling you to basically steal things from other websites. So again, as I keep saying, I'm not expecting you to become some incredible graphic artist, inventive Vincent van Gogh person as a software engineer. Basically what I'm trying to give you the skills to do is go out on the web, find a website that looks pleasing to you, and then fire up Twitter Bootstrap and incorporate those aspects of that website that you like into Twitter Bootstrap and get something that looks nice and works well super quickly. Okay, so that's the goal, and the way that we're going to learn how to do that is by taking a couple websites off the web and trying to re-implement them using Twitter Bootstrap. Okay, so the one that we're going to do today is called Kamanu Composites. It's a very kind of a cool website. This stuff, the only thing I'm going to have you guys work on is this nav bar, this picture, and this little tagline underneath, this other stuff. They just insert some little widgets. We're not going to worry about that for right now because it's not really Twitter Bootstrap-y stuff. So your completed implementation is just going to essentially look like this. And the hints, we're going to base it on the Bootstrap example intro basic template. And I've found some of the graphics, like the logo and stuff. I'm just giving you links to them so you don't have to fool around with that. And we're going to be making, as you'll see, extensive use of Chrome developer tools to inspect the Kamanu website and also kind of inspect what's happening in our own website as we develop it to make sure that things are okay. Okay, so let's see how this all works out. We'll start the timer. And we're going to create a GitHub repo called Responsive Kamanu. So we'll go to GitHub and we'll say new repository. And we'll say Responsive Kamanu, and we'll say create, and then we'll say set up in desktop. So we'll download it into this directory, Responsive Kamanu, clone it in. Looks good. Now we want to have a, we don't want to commit those darn IntelliJ files, so we'll do a generate. We'll copy this. And then we'll go to git ignore, we'll copy that in. And remember, this isn't set up correctly yet. I've submitted a pull request, so I'm hoping that by the time, in fact, that you're seeing this, the default will be fixed, but you never know. So the point is that we don't want to ignore the entire idea directory. We just want to ignore these specific files. So we'll save changes, go here, commit, git ignore. So that's all set up, and good. Okay, so let's go back to our instructions. Now we've got to create the IntelliJ project, obviously. So let me go to IntelliJ, new project, static web is fine. And if we go to, well, shoot, so we go here, and then we find Responsive Kamanu, we choose, we'll get the right project name. And bingo, there's our Responsive Kamanu project. And so we want to basically base it on the Bootstrap example intro. So the fastest way that I know to do that is to open this in a new window. And then we'll take the index and we'll do a Control-C, Control-V to copy that in. Sure. And then we'll do Control-C to copy the style, Control-V, okay, yes. Okay, and then we're done with this example intro, so we'll just get rid of that. We'll move this down, and then what I like to do is split horizontally so that we've got our index.html on the top, our style.css in the bottom, and we can even get rid of the project. I don't think we'll need that too much. And then also, you know, I think it's good at the beginning just to kind of get rid of this, the example junk, which was basically those two classes in that page content. Save that out. Okay, so the other thing we're going to want to do is actually display. So I could take this and move this down here, and then in this window, I can open file. I'll find responsive Kamanu. This is all just kind of housekeeping to get us set up to hack away. Okay, and so there we have that. And final thing we want to do essentially is set up the live reload with responsive Kamanu, and then click this button. So it's now monitoring it. And then to test it, we see we have project. Well, we have the title project here. That's one of the things we're supposed to do, is change the page title to responsive Kamanu. So we'll take this opportunity to make sure that our live reload is working. So we'll say responsive Kamanu, save it out. Okay, and in fact this was changed, so everything's good. As we change things in our source code, we'll see the results down here. Okay. So we've gone through all these 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. The 6th step is incorporate the logo into the nav bar. So our logo is here. So we can say save image as, and then we'll say project hosting, blah, 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 responsive Kamanu, save. Okay, and we want to put it into the nav bar. So the question is, where does that go? Well, the simple place to do it is in this navbar brand area. So what we can do is we can say in here, img source equals, and then you'll notice that IntelliJ is actually giving us completions from the files in that directory, which is super awesome. So we put header logo in here, and then we complete the image tag, and we save it out, and voila, we see our Kamanu composites in there. And then the very next instruction is adjust the navbar so that excess padding around logo is removed. Okay, so how we do that? Well, the way we're going to do that is to inspect this to figure out what the heck is going on. Okay, so we inspect this image tag. We see that that's not, the image tag itself is not responsible for that, but if we go up one level to the A, and we look in this navbar brand tag, now we can see, if you look at that green stuff up there, you can see that that's where this padding is occurring. And if we look at navbar brand, we see padding 15 at the top and 15 at the bottom. Okay, so one thing, so in order to fix that, what we can do is we'll just override. Remember that our style file comes after the Bootstrap style file, so even though Bootstrap's going to define this navbar brand class, if we define a navbar brand class in our style.css file, any definitions we put over here are going to kind of merge and override any definitions there. So let's see how that works. Let's say we put a padding top 0 pixels into our file. Okay, now take a look, watch the Kamanu composites thing. When I save it out, okay, see how it shifts up. And also you can see now this in the inspector, we have navbar brand padding top 0 pixels coming from our style.css. Okay, and essentially overriding the padding that was occurring in the Bootstrap definition. All right, so that's the kind of games that we're going to play all through this, is that we're going to be inspecting elements, figuring out how they get the properties that they get, and then changing them in our style.css to do more of the right thing. Okay, so we've got rid of that padding, and then we want the navbar to be the same height as the logo. Okay, so you can see right now it looks silly because the navbar is thinner. So let's kind of look. Here's navbar brand, and here's if we go here, we see that we have navbar inverse, okay, appears to be the class that's getting these properties. If I click on the button here, okay, and so it looks like what we can do is change our navbar inverse class to add some height, okay. So let's try that. So we'll go dot navbar inverse, and let's say the height, I don't know, 70 pixels. Let's see what happens when we do that. Okay, well that's good, as you can see. It's now a lot bigger, but it's still not quite there. So I don't know, let's try 80 pixels. And that's super close. That is just like one, I bet you one more pixel will do it. Let's try it. Yeah, okay, so now we've got the navbar at the same height. And the next, so that's good. Now we're on to 8. Incorporate the Kamanu carbon fiber graphic as a repeated background image in the navbar. Okay, so let's go back up to our this link, and there's our little carbon fiber thingy. So BG carbon, we'll save that out. Okay, so the question is where to put that, and I think, you know, if we look at, if we kind of inspect what's up here, we again see that this navbar inverse is where the background color is currently being defined. So let's add a background image to this navbar inverse class and see if we can override that stuff. So underneath our height, we'll say background image colon URL, and then I think it's background carbon. Okay, so I type the B, I get the completion, and I'll add the semicolon to the end. I'll save it out, and lo and behold, it's pretty sweet. Okay, now we've got our carbon fiber background in the navbar, just like we want. Okay, so eliminate the black background from the home navbar menu item. So if you look at this again, you see, hey, home looks kind of junk. It's black, whereas the other ones are. So why would that be? Well, let's turn our little magnifying glass and look at home. And if we look at home, we see we've got this navbar inverse, navbar nav, active, A. But the about doesn't have that. So maybe let's check out the difference between home and about. If we look at about, we see that it's navbar inverse, navbar nav, LIA. But if we look at home, oh, look at this. We've got this active class in there. Okay? And maybe that's the problem. Well, once you get that far, you kind of got to look at the HTML and you say, hey, wait a second, I've added this active. That was part of my predefined template. So really the solution to this might be just get rid of the darn active class, and in fact now, you know, it looks the way we want to. We want it to, at least at this point. Okay, so so that, you know, just an indication that sometimes you actually got to look at the HTML, sometimes you got to look at the CSS, you know, you got to look at everything, try to figure this out. All right, so we got to edit the set of navbar items to be similar to those in the Kamanu website. So let's go to the Kamanu website. We've got store, Pueo, Alkahi, Kamanu v6, Ihu, and about. So let's go here, and we'll say store, and I'm going to get rid of these. Oops. And function delete, store. Woo. Let's put our hands in the right place. Pueo. Contact. Store Pueo Alkahi. Okay, now I can do a propeller D to duplicate. Option delete to delete. Kamanu v6. Propeller D to duplicate. Option delete, delete. Get rid of two things. Eho. Duplicate. Option delete, and about. Okay, so we save that out. Now we see that we've got the same set of menu items, which is good. So let's go back to our assignment. Okay, so we've edited this set of navbar items to be similar to those in the Kamanu website. adjust the font position and spacing of navbar items to be similar. Note, you do not have to replicate the vertical dotted lines. Okay, so when I was playing around with this before, I realized that these vertical dotted lines are a pain to get to work correctly for uninteresting reasons. So rather than have you just go down a rabbit hole of trying to make the dotted lines work correctly, I'm just taking that out of the requirements. But we do want them to be basically the same font and color and size and so forth. So how would we do that? Well, the way we do that is essentially by clicking on it and right-clicking to inspect element to see what the heck it is. Okay, so we just go look at that element. What we see is it's Lucida Grand, 1.25 EM, bold, and here's the color. Okay, so if we go down now to ours, we've got to figure out where we want to add those properties. So let's just click on our link here. Okay, and what we can see is that the class where that's happening appears to be this one right here. So let's, since that's where the color's being defined, we can put those other properties in to that same spot, and it seems like it should be fine. So let's just create that class, and we're going to say that the font family is going to be Lucida Grand, and we'll say sans serif as the default. And then we want a font size of 1.25 EM, that's what they're using. And we want a font weight of bold, and we want a color of # E5 EDDC. You know, and that's probably good for this. So let's save that out, okay, and take a look. And it looks pretty good, but it looks actually even a little bigger. So for some reason, their EMs are not the same as our EMs. So let's tone that down to maybe 1.1 and see. And that looks pretty good. Okay. Now in terms of, now they're not spaced quite as nicely as theirs are. And so let's take a look at their LI class in here. So if we click this, okay, because that'll give us a sense for what that entire region looks like. And what they've done is they've said text align center and a width of 9 EM. Okay, well that's kind of a good way to go. So let's figure out what our LI class is. And our LI class appears to be navbar nav LI. Well, let's make a copy of that. Okay. And so if we say for us that we want text align center, and we want a width of 9 EM, what does that do to us? Okay, well it makes us a little too spread out, I think. So let's try 7 EM. Okay, and that's still, we're getting a little bit of a override here. So maybe we'll try 6 EM. And that's still looking not like what we want. Let's figure out why. Navbar nav LI. Let's see. Oh, because, all right, so let's see. So this is navbar nav. Here's the LI. And then inside. Okay, let's instead of doing, let's put it into this class, actually. because then we'll be expanding out the link itself as opposed to the item. So we put it in here. And now we have to make this wider. Let's try that. There we go. Okay. It's a little bit of fiddling. But that's okay. It's kind of the way it is sometimes. Alright, so now we've got this spread out maybe a little bit less, more properly. Whoops, we can't do that. So 7, 8. Okay, because otherwise that would wrap over on one line. So that's looks pretty good. And yeah, I think we're good on that one. Okay, so now we're going to incorporate the paddling picture underneath the nav bar as a background image. Alright, so let's go up here to the paddling picture. We'll save image as Pueo Canoe's front. Okay, and then if we go back here, we're going to use background size cover, background position center, height 385. So to do this, we'll do our standard trick, which is we'll create a class called canoes, background image, URL, with the Pueo Canoes, that file, and then we get these properties, which I've given you, because fiddling with some of these background images are just super painful. So I'm just telling you that these tend to work pretty well. So I'm going to define that canoes class, and then over here I'm going to say div class equals canoes. Okay, and then I'll put that in, and lo and behold, let's go up a little bit here. Okay. We've got us some canoes. Okay, so let's go down here and take a look. Here's our div class canoes. Okay, and it says adjust, the next thing says adjust the body element so the paddling picture shows up under the nav bar. Okay, so the point, what I'm trying to express there is that when you click on this classical canoes, you see that the picture is actually kind of snugged up underneath the nav bar. Okay, and what? Why would that be? Well, let's think about this a little bit. This has a, if we inspect this element, we see the height of our nav bar is now 81 pixels. Okay, and remember that we have to put this padding top in the body in order to move the body of the page below the nav bar. But we made the nav bar taller than it used to be. It used to be 50 pixels. Now it's whatever it is, 81 pixels. I forget. Let me see. 81 pixels. Okay, so we've got about 30 pixels that we've got to push it down further. So let's add 81 pixels to our padding top, and kabang, that moves the image right down where it should be. Okay? Alright, sweet. So now we want to add the tagline bar, We Build Canoes, into your page, making it look similar to the one on the Kamanu website. Well, if we want to make it similar to it, we might as well look and see how they do it. Okay, and so let's use our little guy to inspect this thing. Div ID black bar. Okay, so this is their black bar, and they define this thing with a background color of black, height of 131 pixels, text align center. And then if we look inside, they have an H2 where they have this We Build Canoes. Okay? Alright, well let's just do something similar. Let's create a class. Black bar sounds kind of silly. Let's call it tagline instead. But we'll also have our own background color of black. And we'll say the height should be, why not 131 pixels? I don't know why they picked 131 versus 130, but, and then we'll say text align center, just like they do, okay? And then, just like they do, underneath our div class canoes, we'll say div class equals tagline, okay? And then inside there, just like they do, we'll say h2, we build canoes, okay? So when we do that, and we scroll down, we see that we're, you know, kind of in the neighborhood here, not totally. Here we go. Okay, so the first thing we note is that our We Build Canoes is not the right font or anything like that. So let's look and see what they did. Okay, well what they did is they said, well, in our black bar, if we have an H2 inside our black bar class, this is what we want to have to be true. So why don't we do a similar kind of thing for us. We'll say dot tagline H2, and we'll say font family Georgia times is the default, and we'll say font size 3EM. Now their EM seem to be different from our EM, so we'll have to, you know, who knows. And then their color was pound 666. Let's save that out. Okay, and that, oh yeah, ours looks kind of thin compared to theirs. So let's, oh, they had a text align of center, but looks like we're, oh, we've got that already. Okay, so let's do our font weight of 700. See if that makes it a little more, yeah, okay. A little more buff. We made our font a little buffer. Okay, so that's pretty good, except for the fact that we got this white. Okay, so what's going on there? And so let's just click our little button. Okay, and then what we notice is that our H2 actually has this. You see the orange there, that means there's a margin. Okay, and so if you look down here, you can see margin top 20 pixels, margin bottom 10 pixels. That's exactly what we're seeing there. That's junk. Okay, so let's get rid of margin entirely in here. 0 pixels. Okay. All right, that's getting really close, except for the fact that this is, you know, kind of at the top, and we want it in the middle. Well, to fix that, we can say padding top, I don't know, 30 pixels. Let's see what that does. Pretty good. Okay, let's go back here. That's about all we needed to do. Let's step back, take a look at our handiwork. Okay, looks really nice. We go here. We see that it makes a nice little responsive thing with the menu. Okay, I'd say not a bad looking thing. And all that's left now is to commit our finished project to GitHub. So let's go to GitHub and say finished WOD, commit and sync. And it looks we did that in about 27 minutes. Okay, so again, you know, kind of, you know, it takes a while to get this to, you know, to kind of understand this. I'm not so concerned with you getting everything pixel perfect replication. I'm more concerned that you go through this process of using Chrome developer tools to inspect elements, being able to strip out CSS properties from a site that you like, and then integrating it into a Twitter Bootstrap based, you know, framework, user interface, so that you get the right kind of thing. Now, you know, the point being here is that Kamanu, right, it's not responsive. Okay, so it just, you know, it looks junk if you go up here. Okay, you can't get the menus or anything. And ours is awesome, you know, when you make it you know, mobile sized. Okay, so but you know, we gave up some other things, so they have these little dotted out lines and we don't have it. So whenever you're kind of stealing from other sites, you want to kind of steal to the point at which you're not making your CSS crazy to, provide certain features. And that's what I was discovering when I was, designing this WOD for you, is that, replicating those vertical dotted lines was just so painful to do right in a responsive fashion that I just, and to get everything, the logo, I mean, you'd have to start, filling with the JPEGs and so forth. So anyway, fun WOD. Do it a couple, 3 times. This is, going to be a few hours, I think, that you'll work with it. But all that time spent working with it is really going to increase your facility with Chrome Developer Tools, with CSS. So it's time well invested. Hope you like it. Hope you go out paddling sometime, or maybe this will get you interested in outrigger canoe paddling. It's a great sport. So with that, I'll see you later.